Trading the foreign exchange market carries high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Trading on margin, utilizing leverage can carry an even higher level of risk that can lead to a complete loss of investment funds. So before deciding to trade the foreign exchange market or using any of our software alert products, you should carefully and diligently consider your personal investment objectives, level of experience, and risk tolerance. There is a possibility that you could potentially sustain significant loss. You should not invest any capital or trade that you cannot afford to lose. It is your responsibility to be aware of and understand all risks associated with foreign exchange trading and to seek professional advice from an independent certified financial advisor if you have any doubts. Auvoria Prime does not exercise trading authority over your trades. You and you alone exercise discretionary trading authority over every trade.
Looking at the Forex calendar, for those of you joining us late, my name is Steve Vetterl. I am the CMA risk analyst, risk market guy. Hopefully the guy that gives you decent advice and not crappy advice, right? Today's the 27th of March. Welcome to the software strategy for the week. We're looking at forexfactory.com. Highly suggest that you guys utilize the same site. Let me just drop this in the chat window. Got some questions on this last week. I tell you, I had a bunch of questions also in relation to, yeah, and I'll review the USD JPY. I see that there, Paul. I'll get to that. I'm just going to go through some of this. Keep in mind, Friday, guys, is a big holiday for much of the planet. I should say the western side of the planet, and that would be Good Friday. Celebration of Easter Sunday coming up. Most banks are closed with the exception of the US, which always befuddled me. But in any case, do note that there are no other news stories Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So all should be trading, all shouldn't have any issues. Let's say a prayer for that. In any case, that's the story on Forex Factory. Here are the social media channels. We've made some adjustments to some of this. I will go over the Euro USD. Yes. Do me a favor if you guys put the questions in a Q&A window, not in chat. Sometimes the chat gets minimized on me and I just don't look at it. Got to get in the habit of doing that. All right. We've had a lot of people join these Telegram channels for all the and just a comment on this. I had an email from a older subscriber, welcome, that didn't want to download Telegram and or thought Telegram was going to be difficult to deal with. It's actually very easy to deal with. But I would just suggest subscribing at the very least to the official Telegram channel, mine, and whichever groups or single pieces of software that you have deployed, right? Each of these rooms has a chat room that is associated with it as well, where you can ask questions. Ask good questions, be complete with your questions. We see a lot of stuff get posted in these rooms that, frankly, I don't understand what the hell they're asking. So just make sure you ask your question clear and, keep the rooms clear without lots of banter, because it's hard for the developers. I know Fernando, as an example of Neo, he does spend some time peeling through the room. So in order to save him some time, keep all the banter to minimized degree, please. That way we can just rip through all that chat quickly. I monitor a little bit the variable room, just because I know Dasan is buried in trying to get some updates done in software and tickets and so forth that he answers. So in any case, those are the rooms, the developer calls. Obviously, at a very minimum, I would listen to company update calls, your particular groups of software's developers calls. One is each week, and then the chat that goes on, because there's actually been some pretty good questions asked in there. But if you don't have Telegram, you really don't have the main form of communication, and that very much in and of itself is a big risk issue. Okay, calendar. Let's take a look at the charts. Starting off with S&P. Note the big reversal. Make sure we're on the daily here. Big reversal Friday back near the highs, but do note that the participation isn't in the tech-heavy NASDAQ. All right, do note that. Okay, doesn't mean the whole market's going to roll over, but right now you have the biggest leader starting to lag and rotation into value-based stocks. Okay. So bonds, take a quick look. Not too much to talk about since Tuesday when I showed this chart last 7 to 10 year. These are US bond markets, very important to pay attention to recently because they've been signaling a lot of craziness as far as potential ticking ups in inflation, which really the market's getting a whiff of. But quite frankly, we haven't seen it. So let's go into the DXY. Now, note what I had talked about on Tuesday, we had pulled back underneath. Notice it was quite shallow. This is the daily chart again, DXY representation of a basket of currencies here in terms of its valuation, if you will. Notice we've broken above the 200-day line. This happened as of late last week. So unlike a lot of very bearish forecasts that have gone on, including yours truly, since December, we have broken out from a pretty big area. Why is this important? Because more than likely we're headed right here. Right in this zone. This is the 94 to 94.5 zone where we've had major resistance in the last 6 months. Okay. We could, in all frankness, don't know that we'll move that quick, but it has happened in the past. We could make an absolute zipper moved up to this area, right? So just know that if you're accepting, and obviously with that immediately dovetails into the euro US dollar, right? Now that we've gone below these lines, the exact opposite is the case. So we're targeting now the 1630-ish to the to the 1600 area. Okay. I personally am a lot less interested in accepting longs on this currency, right? Do note that. Make sure that is communicated to your teams. I'm not saying step in front of the software and be a hero. I'm just saying don't fret if you wake up one morning and there was a whole bunch of longs that were offered on this currency and you didn't take them, right? What else do I want to note? Let's just leave it at that for now. Take a look at Euro GBP. Same thing. Got to go to the weekly on this dog because we're below. We're headed far towards this 85 area. We've had some pretty solid support in this area, and then ultimately the right under 83 here. I think at some point it's going to be tested. I've been seeing this area since a long time. Seems like an eternity here on this weekly chart. Double check one thing on the weekly here. The weekly chart, we're at support, but that line has had multiple tests here. I still think ultimately getting a better frame on this by looking at the daily. Still that 1640 area, anywhere in this whole sort of spot 163 area. Just keep that in note. All right, Antinomian. Do note, just so we look at the calendar here, guys. You know what? Coming into the end of March here. Yeah, sorry about that. I oversight on my part. See this right here? We got non-farm payrolls on Friday. You know, honestly, between the bank holidays and the fact that typically Thursdays and Fridays statistically win rates are much lower anyway. Obviously, since we have this, you know, honestly, guys, if I were you, I probably wouldn't be trading on Friday. So I'll put that in the notes, right? So cast that wide. Let's take a look at the USDJPY. Okay. So still should be in trending up mode, depending on what software you're using. Obviously, we're looking at the daily here. Notice we've gone above some Notice we zippered right up to that too, which just means nothing more than there's really extended moves up to an area because there's almost like an air pocket up to this whole 109 spot 60 area. Let's take a look at the weekly. Same thing. I think ultimately on the daily here, we're looking at probably this 1164 area. I hadn't really had too much of a chance to look at these charts before I started this morning. So you guys are getting my analysis live, real time on the spot, right, wrong, or indifferent. But 111, I think eventually is the area we're headed to here. Probably could see it pretty quickly too. Again, you know, much more interested in taking longs on pullbacks all the way up to this area, right? Keep in mind, there's a lot of this advice is from MAV users of this software. All right, so what's the next question? Let's take a look at CH. Quick peek at CADs. I got a question on that. Daily here. And a lot of this is going to be, as most of these currency the case is, maybe with the exception of the pound. A lot of this is going to be dependent on where the dollar heads, right? So you always got to study that stuff first in detail, what it's moving with all the majors before you get into some of these, some of the more exotics or the cross. Let's take a look at CAD CHF. Oh, here it is. I always seem to lose this one. So let's take a look at the daily nosebleed section. So we got to go to the weekly. Still, same thing I talked about on Tuesday, this whole 76 area. You know, as everything that's been attached to Swiss in most cases has been weak. It's almost like this is running completely different than the USD CAD. Let's jump back real quick. It's interesting how the correlations on these have just been starting to break apart. Makes analysis tougher on this. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, if you look at GBP, right, in relation to the Swiss, if you take a look at CAD's relation to the Swiss, right, I mean, everything's relation for the most part. Here it is. I mean, everything's been weak. I should say the Swiss has been weak in relation to almost everything, you know, maybe with the exception of yen, right? Let's go to the daily on this one. But if you're just looking across the board, here's USD CHF. A lot of times I'll just rip through just a quick daily analysis so we can see how these patterns are playing out in relation. You know, for this particular one, we've got to go to the weekly, right? And I have a lot, unfortunately, murkier analysis. I mean, we're in trend up. Obviously, it's been that case for now 1, 2, 3. And then we had 2 dojis and a fourth. So on the monthly, we stopped one time framing up, but looking on the daily chart for this, we've been one time framing up for 3 days last week on the daily. Then we had a doji. So normally, I would say continue to, you know, your higher win rate trades are typically accepted on pullbacks, right? Because we're in trend up, so pullbacks down to a line or whatever your analysis, the trend line window looks like, which I'm not drawing here. A lot of times I don't draw it because you guys could probably see where the trend lines are. This one's a little sloppier. Arguably, we're not in trend. We're in some sort of balance. But we've had for the first time in a while a rejection of a higher high on, and maybe that will bring a little relief where we begin to build a base in here, in which case obviously it's considerably easier from a MAV version to be accepting trades on both sides. So when you're in trading something like an arrow, obviously a lot of my analysis just look at it from a target standpoint, from a big picture, right? But it doesn't change. I should say you should just go based on the strategies that Arrow has set, and Nathan and everybody else has been captaining the team really good inside there. Some excellent opportunities to trade, but you do need to be present and you do need to follow the strategies very closely, and you do need to trade yourself, which isn't bad. GBP NZD daily. Let's see, CAD CHF. Let me take a closer look at CAD CHF again, and I'll be kind of jumping around. Yeah, I mean, when you're in a move up, the question is does a Canadian Swiss look like it's going to? The problem is I just, whenever you see, and again, this is a daily chart, whenever you see a significant base get built, we're looking what, 6 months, arguably it's been longer, right? A base that's been built since damn near like a year ago, and you break from the long built base like this, it's really rare that you come back down inside it. That doesn't mean some big event could break down, or, none of the vaccines work and everybody gets coronavirus again, or some crazy ass thing, right? And it couldn't come back down inside this. But typically when a good base is built, it breaks from that, it's going higher. Because it's spent a lot of time down here. Nobody, at least in terms of the big guys, defended it right here, right? That there was a ton of shorts up here because this and all the other corresponding frontline majors in front of this, right, or the ring, if you will, broke out because nobody was expecting all of the strength in the dollar and the Canadian dollar for that matter, and they just continue to break out. So it's caught a lot of institutions short, right? Because every time they came up against what was a stepping up resistance level, see how this red line stepped up in a base, tells me that we're ready for a breakout, right? Broke out, came back down. Notice we tested that line, right? Almost perfectly. Oh, the top part of that step up zone, and then we ripped. This is a situation where I personally would never be accepting shorts, right? Now, if we got super, it's stretched out, that from a standard deviation or a Keltner channels or however you want to measure a stretched move, we're going to snap back to a certain degree. So those are more safe shorts when they get up around those big band lines, which I don't have drawn on here, but it just measures a stretch, as most currencies are what's called mean reverting, meaning they want to trade back towards the mean. It's going to snap back down. But after the big reversal after that, there's no way I'd be taking shorts anywhere here. It's longs only, just pullbacks in the trend. You can look at a 4-hour chart, which is probably going to confuse you guys in this analysis even more, but you could see the 4-hour pulling back to the trend line wherever we're close, was this trades all work almost 100%. So just know that. Maybe that's a bit more analysis than we need at this point, but the activity in the CH and all the ones in front of most of the Swiss franc has just been very poor. And that's because of this big break. It's probably a bunch of charts I can completely make your head spin around with way too much analysis here. You get to a point where you get paralysis by analysis. So I try to just keep it a big picture. All right, so let's go into the next question. Euro CAD. Let's take a look at that. Do I have that on the list? Euro AED, by the way, just real quick before I switch over. The Euro CAD get deleted. Okay, EuroCAD. Again, this is support right here. Even though there's no line here, this is basically it. See, this is where we broke out. Right, this is almost an opposite. This is almost another example to see how we spent a lot of time balancing in a very broad area. Was literally from this whole 50 spot 588 area all the way down to this spot 50-57 area, and then we broke from that. So more than likely, if we come back up against this, this is going to be resistance, and we're probably going to be testing lower. Canadian dollar has been strong. All right, let's take a look at the weekly on this. Continuing this, this 1.4620 area, and then 1.4335 area. Remember, you always want to think of these in terms of just zones, not to the tick, right? In terms of support or resistance lines. And in all fairness, the squeeze zones have been very good. This is an algo that Dasan wrote for TradingView. I utilize it pretty good. It actually works great on S&P futures as well, which is the ES contract that I trade. Quick look at oil. I think it's not as relevant in this discussion, but got a request for that. Higher. Everybody's getting back to work, although some will still be working from home going forward. Gold. Decline. Notice that the support line held here. Actually, let me just look at the, let's look at spot first. It's a big support area held. So more than likely we're headed up in gold. See this big area that held? They came out and defended this pretty well. And let's take a look. CAD CHF 4-hour. Let me double check that. I'm not seeing it, Alex. Not seeing the inverse. Head and shoulders. Maybe I'm just blind today. So just generally start off with, for those of you just joined us late, I always start off with DXY on the daily, right? We broke above some pretty key resistance up here. Now we're beginning to probably glide up before ultimately they smash this thing down to the mid 80s at some point. This is really just it's like a repatriation trade. GBP, JPY. Let's take a look at that. I've looked at this in a while. Stuck in a range, right up here. So 52, 52 spot 20 area. Double check the weekly. Could have room ultimately to move to this 155.73 area. I think ultimately we're probably going to go up and test that on daily. Or this is actually on the weekly, sorry. Take a look at the daily. Sometimes it's easier to look at the weeklies, obviously. I'd say we go up and hit this area at some point. Then it's much easier for a regular martingale system to take trades on both sides once you've hit a particular resistance or support point. And the big guys have defended the area, which we've seen a lot in these charts. USD CHF. You come in late. Here, I'll show you again. Weekly chart. A lot to glean from this. I'll tell you guys, it's tough. I don't really have some murkiness. Let's go to the daily. I'd say right here, this 0.95 points our next target. COT was the next question. This is kind of like getting the Edgar database, SEC 10K and 10Q reports on companies 2 months after. It's like old news. So the COT report, you guys can Google it if you want. I'm not going to get into it, but commitment of traders reports just reports institutional positions. Far more important analysis when you're trading the futures markets than trading Forex or trading any kind of you're just looking to see where the funds are. FinViz actually does a pretty decent job at this. If you want to utilize maybe a more graphical representation, this is just finviz.com. By the way, look at that rip in the S&P late Friday. It's crazy, huh? But if you go into futures markets, I actually like this dashboard a lot. I recommend this to even some of my oldest clients, not because I want, Granny Smith to be paying attention to charts. But here, I'll put the link in just because I think it's a great way to look at everything in one shot, right? And this is free. Here's the link. And it's not that you're going to be like, well, this is doing this. And you can see what's going on globally as far as indices, right? Stocks, right? As much as we don't mess with that, a lot of our subscribers have portfolios, right? It's my main occupation as a money manager. So I'm always looking at what's going on in equities, obviously in relation to everything else, right? And with the markets, we just got too short on Friday and, they absolutely ripped, right? In anticipation of a bunch of things. One, I think surprise to the market was the strength. This is just a 5-minute chart, so there's not much you can take from it. But a lot of times I'll just jump around, just seeing what's happening on this. But this is where I spend just from a glance standpoint. If I'm on the road traveling, I want to see what's going on here. All currencies. You can actually switch this to charts, right? So you could see this is how you begin to understand what's called correlations. That is the comparative analysis of one currency or one commodity or futures contract move in relation to the other, right? Now we're looking at this on a daily chart right here. See, you can switch them to whatever. But this is really one of the few places where you can just actually see all this in one shot. So I'll take a look at all this, right? Dollar going up, again, daily charts. Each of these represent a single day. Euro going down, yen going down, pound, at least of late, going up, generally trending up, right? Aussie stuck in the melees. NZD got just fried. As you guys probably know, this put some accounts in drawdowns. This is flat out why I don't like trading this currency unless it's on super risk capital only. Strength in Canadian dollar, right? Weakness in Swiss. So correlations, and you can see how, not as much the 2-year of 5, obviously, but pay attention to the 30 and 10-year. A lot of this is why mortgage rates have been ticking up. A lot of people are like, oh, why do you know what's going on with the mortgage rates, right? And, obviously for our overseas subscribers, you guys may not have mortgages that are what's called 30-year fixed. I don't know what the hell is being offered overseas, but it's a big chunk of commerce in terms of this country. So it's important to pay note to the fact that mortgage rates have been going up. Why? Because the price of bonds have been falling. It's a perfect inverse correlation between the two. And it's very important to note, at least from a macro standpoint, that if you're trading currencies. So what's going on? In any case, so that's a good graphical representation of correlation and uncorrelated markets. Let's see what else we got in questions here. Alex, the man, I like this chart you drew. Possible. So I guess neckline's right here, right? Yeah. So I just didn't see that. Can't see them all. Federal, you made a mistake. I can't believe it. Kudos to Alex. Great analysis, brother. This is on CAD CHF, folks, 4-hour chart. All right, what else we got here? So typically, and I'll just go to, because this is actually a pretty good question Paul asked. JPY looks like it's got extremely weak lately. Any views on this? Let's just start off with, obviously the US's relation to it. Japan introducing, stimulus. I mean, obviously, well, I mean, keep in mind if let's just make up a hypothetical. Forget whether it's actually taking place. If the Japanese central bank, right? These guys have gotten it wrong for decades. But if the Japanese central bank throws cash on their primary dealer markets, right, essentially sprinkling money from the skies, and they add to their debt with stimulus, it's a devaluing event typically for the underlying currency of that country, right? So you would expect, if that's the case, that this dollar would be gaining strength against the yen. Does that make sense? So if it doesn't, you could just put in, you want a deeper explanation. But I try to keep it real basic on this because it's very easy to get lost. And I don't expect you guys, as I always joke, let your hearts not be troubled. You don't need to do this level of analysis, even though we've been quite generic and very big picture in order to be successful in the currency markets, or in any markets for that matter, if you have software that is helping you cut through that. Keep in mind too, unless you were a big hedge fund or some sort of macro shop, a lot of this stuff wasn't available to the degree it is now to the retail customer 10 years ago. You had to do this yourself. I'd spend 6-7 hours sitting in front of these trading systems. I just got burned out. But it's great to have software doing it for me. By the way, I don't know if you guys have noticed, we're 27 days into March. Look how good Neo's done. Again, I'm not, if Stratamus is going well, and Neo and Variable and Gearbox, and the guys trading Arrow, I'll show them all, right? I have no, I don't have any favorites, if you will, right? What I do like is consistency. And I know that Killian with Stratamus has put out consistency. And obviously these two programs trade very specific currency pairs, or at least in most cases. So if you look at the summary of trades over the whole period of time, there's been 236 trades taken. Is that right? Yeah. So what are we looking at? A little more than 6 months, right? 236 trades taken with high win rates. This is really good, you guys. So, and I think it's very smart of the window that this thing trades to be a period of time that typically doesn't have any major news being released. So that's awesome. All right. Well, the U.S. stimulus package, Paul, was far priced into the market. Actually, let me show you this. Back to the dollar. Far priced into the market a long time ago. Okay. So this is the effect of the U.S. stimulus package. Almost a full $10 being shaved off our dollar. Okay. And at some point, this is already far priced in. That's a rotten trend line. Let's try that again. It's actually a poor trend line. Delete. It's it's knocked almost $10 off the value of the US dollar in terms of its other currency basket that you see here. At some point, there needs to be a repatriation trade take place, and honestly, I think a lot of it just has to do with in an amalgamation of multiple currencies. There's been way too many people short the dollar, and it's coming back to roost on them. So, love it or hate the United States, the country and our currency is still looked at as the ultimate store of value, even though we jumped off of the gold standard many decades ago. See what else we got here. Questions. Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, what else did I want to address? Everything Forex, we got that straight. Non-farm next week. I probably would be trading Friday. Introduce you guys, if you haven't seen us before, to FinViz. Just look at the bottom. I wouldn't get caught up with all this other stuff. You know, let your let your focus be on, you know, you could see its correlations with, you know, energy to, you know, gases to silvers, all that stuff, or any type of metals essentially. But I would just focus mostly on the correlation between the 10 and 30 year to currencies, right? The correlation between one currency to another, and understanding just broadly. This will help you reduce the risk in all of your trading. I promise you this, even though it's a very generic and it's high level. You know, I'm teaching my son this, and he is in 7th grade. So, in all fairness, Evan's a whiz and he's in a lot of advanced math classes, but you know, he just doesn't have a lot of focus right now. So other than watching damn YouTube videos, we're trying to get him to focus on this stuff. Anyways, that's the charts. Forex. What else did I want to address? Let me take a quick peek. Bear with me a second here through the Telegrammer. Ah, that's right. Do note that, let me just click on the, yeah, so we've got the VPS. Let me just drag this in if you guys haven't seen this. Do note about the VPS reminder. Make sure you get this communication out via text or whatever to your team. I'll tell you one thing I do love about, I forget what team it was. They have a texting system that they use to all their teams. Like everybody's mobile number. And then a lot of these announcements go out automatically to their whole team via text. I forget. I mean, there's a number of programs out there that do this from a marketing standpoint. We've all gotten texts that, you know, come to the BMW store and, you know, spring summer event, whatever. But the this particular is important. And I think I think we're going to get our team on the announcements this via text. But Telegram basically is like texting. Just one thing I would do with the official channel is I would always keep, you can turn off see the notifications here. You can disable them, which means it'll still show up obviously, but it's not going to be dinging your phone every other minute. But your software, the developers main announcements I would not turn off because stuff shows up. But that's as far as the Telegram. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Let me see if we got any other questions. Got one popped up. I do use Einstein. I feel for you. I've stuck on shorts here, so I would see any reversal in the coming days. If you join, looks like you may have joined us late. I did the analysis daily. I'm stuck on shorts. How are you stuck on shorts? We've moved down. Are you stuck on longs? Might want to double check that. Have stuck on shorts. I don't know what that. If you're stuck in shorts, you should be happy. Oh, okay, you're stuck in longs. Yeah, now this is broke. There's no way that software should be taking longs at this point. We've broken. Just you know, it's funny because you do this more and more, and you follow what I do, and you learn all this. You begin to see like, man, why are these softwares automatically trading? You know, it makes a good argument for being in the error room, right? Because you can make the judgment that, hey, this broke support, we're going down, right? Doesn't mean that they won't work. I just work in statistical significance, right? So if something is breaking a pattern, historically and statistically, you really don't have high win rates stepping in front of the freight train, right? Only makes sense. So I wish we could talk about that. But good question. Keep them coming, guys. These are great questions. What else? You guys gonna get to see my ugly face live in Tennessee on the 24th. Let's take a look at next month. So this is the event date. We are going to be live, not Memorex, but live on the 24th. Should be fun. I have to get my ass in the gym before I get on camera. So I'm headed to the gym right now. So if you guys got any other questions, send me an email. I did get one question. Do note that the best thing you guys can do, yeah, it's a virtual event, Judson. The best thing that you guys can do is to get the word out about what we're doing, right? I constantly and continually see individuals signed up as subscribers, and in many cases, they don't know the Telegram channel links. They don't know that I exist, right? And stuff like that. So, this isn't a pat Steve on the back hour because you didn't come and join. This is about risk analysis, right? If you didn't see Tyler's Gearbox presentation, which has been absolutely fabulous the last few weeks, go back and watch it, right? The man knows trading. He knows developing systems. He is also an expert in Forex brokerage. So a lot of great stuff that we can take from a lot of Tyler's work. Kids taught me a bunch of stuff. I needed a good refresher coming into all this over a year ago in Forex anyway. So yeah, for those of you in Nashville, what I would suggest, because I know we have a couple of big leaders in Nashville, I think what we're probably going to try and do, and honestly, this is going to be up to Josh and Bill, but I think there should be a night where we all get down to the strip, just get bombed, right? Just go party. I think we all deserve it, quite frankly, and should be a good time. But I'll look forward to that. But we'll hit everybody up and exchange cell phone numbers and stuff. So thy folk can come out and join us. And seeing as I've only been on a strip a couple times in Nashville, I need some direction. So great town though, great state. Love Marsha Black, she rocks. So anyway, everybody have a great weekend. Be well, be kind to each other.